Today, joining us as always, we bring you the experts who know where the rubber meets the road. And when we bring in Chris Macke, his company Solutionomics, we want to give you solutions. We want you to hear about solutions from a company that's a nonpartisan, and they want to revitalize the American economy and bring new solutions, much like Donald Trump is doing. And Chris, thank you for joining us on Liquid Lunch.
It's my pleasure
having you. Tell us more about Solutionomics, because we only hear the negative. We always talk about the left here, how the media never gives the guy any credit. But what are the solutions out there?
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. There are a lot of solutions out there because there's a lot of problems. Now, Solutionomics is focused on solutions, not politics, not left, not right. My background is in business, and so that means that Solutionomics looks at things from an ROI perspective, a return on investment perspective. Part of the advantage of that is rather than being out here on the left, rather than being out here on the right, we can look at an objective metric like return on investment. Now, I started Solutionomics because while everybody else saw problems and became discouraged, maybe overwhelmed, I looked at them and said, wait a minute, these are opportunities. These are opportunities for improvement. And if we apply an ROI-based approach to it, we can get a better return on investment for the American taxpayer. That's what Solutionomics is about.
We haven't had any government officials that have looked at things from a business perspective in quite some time, in my view.
I can tell you a story about that. So I was in DC probably about a year ago. And I was up on the Hill and I was talking with some different staffers, and I was sharing the idea of tying the corporate tax rate each company pays to their rate of job growth. You know, makes sense. If you're cutting taxes to create jobs and their companies actually creating jobs, which there are a lot today, then reward them for that. When I shared that idea with the staffer, she got this very sad, forlorn look on her face, and she said, they just don't look at things that way. That was emblematic of the mindset, but it's something we can change. We just need to help them understand that.
Yeah, I've been around Washington and Wall Street for a long time, and I don't think it's something we can change unless the voters make the decisions to put different types of people in office. And if you take Donald Trump as an example, why would anyone in their right mind who puts a business approach to the economy want to run for office? If you look at Donald Trump, look at the successes he's having, and they're killing him. Why would anyone else want to do it, is what I'm saying. You apply business to government, it seems to be working.
Well, if you're in the business world, you like challenges. You like innovation. And you know what? I suffer from that. And so I looked at it, and it was driving me crazy that there was all this opportunity for improvement in this country, especially when I looked at my uncles who fought in World War II. And they didn't fight for what's going on today. And I looked at that and I said, you know, we got to do something better. What can my contribution be? And I thought, well, I got a background in economics, I got a background in investments, got a background in finance. We can apply some of those principles to get a better ROI for the American taxpayer. Now, I'm not, thinking this is going to be easy and it's just going to change tomorrow, but what I'm right, because my solutions aren't highly political. They're very much return on investment. They're more objective.
So with respect to the tax reform legislation, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, we hear a lot from representatives from the high tax states, New York, New Jersey, California, about how they did away with the SALT deduction and how it really hurts those folks. You have some other issues with the Tax Cut and Job Acts and how it can be improved. How do you think that it could have been better from a corporate tax point of view, for instance?
Certainly. Well, I see the greatest opportunity for improvement on the corporate tax side. So basically what we did with the TCJA, or the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, is we said, okay, we're going to have universal unconditional tax cuts. That's like running a business and saying, no matter how much you buy from my business, you're all going to pay the same price. What they could have done, and they could have said, if you raise wages, if you increase hiring more, we're going to lower your tax rate more. That's much more efficient, because if you have companies that aren't doing that or are actually laying off Americans, if you don't give them the tax breaks, you can take those dollars and give them to the companies that are increasing wages, are increasing hiring, and you create an even more powerful incentive. The other thing you could do is you could take some of that money that you're not giving the tax breaks to the companies that didn't increase the job growth, and you could actually reduce the deficit. So those are some ideas.
Now, when you talk about this ROI approach to economics and policy, what other areas can we actually get a return on investment from a governmental point of view when it comes to dollars and cents? What are some others?
Well, how much time do we have?
Well, there's one example.
No, exactly. Seriously.
Outside of the
3.5
corporate
minutes.
tax rate. Yeah.
So let's look at global trade. So we, set aside all the debates. We have to face the reality that 13 of the 15 largest economies we traded with in 2018 sold more to us in goods than we did to them. So we can all debate about tariffs, not tariffs, this, that, or the other, but we got to face the reality that our ROI on trade is not as good as it can be. So that's an area where you could specifically address that issue. Let me give you an example of part of the challenge. American companies are competing against state-owned enterprises in China that have negative returns. When you take away their subsidies, they have negative returns. And I forget the exact number, but I think if you look at the larger state-owned enterprises in China, they would comprise maybe half of the Fortune 1000. Okay, so these are the companies that we have to battle with. Our companies are being run based on profits and earning. They don't have that pressure.
Their labor costs, their environmental costs, their regulatory costs, doesn't matter.
And then
it's the Chinese, people don't realize this when some of these people on the left are talking about socialism and communism and all this stuff. The government owns all the businesses. They pay the people nothing, they live in terrible conditions, they pollute like mad, and we have to compete against them. So a little bit, us free market capitalists should be against tariffs, right? Like just generally the government shouldn't put their finger on the scale. But in this case, I feel like Trump pulled off the triple Lindy. You know what I'm saying? Because by threatening tariffs and instituting only little bits and pieces, small ones, and suspending them, that he kind of moved the fulcrum a little bit in the favor of closing that gap between imports and exports.
Well, what people fail to recognize sometimes, because it's a very, very thick book, is in The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith actually talks about the importance of reciprocal tariffs. If you are being treated that unfairly, then it is your right and probably your obligation to even up the score. Now that's different from punitive, but if somebody is taking advantage of you to that degree, it's natural that you would represent your country and your people in saying no more. This needs to be a level playing field.
And I guess somewhere in the invisible hand, even the greatest realize that once in a while you gotta put your thumb on there somewhere.
When the other side isn't playing by the same ideas of the invisible hand, you got to take that into account.
That's right. We're going to do some sleight of hand right here. We're going to take a quick break, and before you is going to appear, poof, Tom Coughlin, the CEO and president of BCB Bank. We're going to be talking pot and banking and all the troubles facing all these companies that are trying to get in the new economy. Chris Macke, I want to thank you for joining us on Liquid Lunch. You stay right there. News break, Liquid Lunch after this.